everybody. We just wanted to go through a tool that I use so often as of late that really gives you a review of your day with God. And it's something that is super important because it allows you to be very present with how God is moving through you and with you and throughout your day. And so, if you want more information on this, the link is below theprodigalfather.org. We'll also link the journal, the actual Examen journal called the Examen Prayer Journal. This was originally developed by St. Ignatius for those that want to maybe dig further also into his rules of engagement, which is just basically rules of engagement, is basically how we know which spirit is moving in us, right? The good spirit or the enemy. And so this just is a really good way to see how we can be more cognizant of those spirits moving in our daily life. And so I'm going to go through each one with you, and just talk a little bit about this. A lot of this is actually from that Examen journal. And Father Michael Dank explains a lot of it. So again, if you want more info, and you don't have to be Catholic to do this. I know Carrie has started doing the Examen a little bit. It's really just about examining your day with God. And so the first step is it shouldn't be too long, right? It should only be 5 to 15 minutes max because we really, St. Ignatius doesn't want it to be too taxing, right? And you don't want to lament on things. So it's really just a review. You can do 5 minutes quickly in your head. And as you do this more and you know these steps, it could be something simple. But he does say that this is the last prayer that should be dropped because it gives you so much insight into how the spirit is moving. And that's what it's all about, awareness. So the first thing is gratitude. We want to just note that all the gifts that God has given us are from him and we can do nothing without him. And so the best thing about a gift is a gift that's as Father Michael said, is accepted, appreciated, and delighted in. And so we just want to take this time to really delight in what God has given us because they're all gifts. And this sets you up to receive even more, right? So you recognize these gifts, you recognize God's incredible grace and his faithfulness, and you can receive and appreciate even more. So it's just a beautiful first step to seeing what God is giving you on a daily basis. The second is petition. So petition means what you want to ask God for. And so as God, just ask him for the grace to maybe see what he wants you to see, right? And I've always was taught that desire in your heart means of the Father. Desire means of the Father. So, God is putting these desires on your heart for a reason. And so we want to bring them to the forefront. We want to be aware of them. And we also want to seek them, right? Seek and you shall find, knock and the door will be opened. So I always just say to the Lord, speak, Lord, your servant is listening. What do you want? What do you want of me? And it doesn't have to be forceful. It doesn't have to be demanding. Sometimes we're like, okay, like what does God want for me? Or this is what I really want. And we're attached to something.
Yeah.
Or I think it's more of, the thing that you can do is just in peace, ask for what, your desires are, believing that he will answer them. Um, and I guess the best, example of this is, Solomon's prayer, right? Is it in Kings, Carrie? You'll have to, where, Solomon, the Lord basically says to Solomon, like, what do you want? And Solomon didn't ask for riches or, he basically asked for discernment about how to lead his people. And so Lord made him the wisest man ever. Basically, he said, there will no one be as wise as you. And so, God wants to give us these really great gifts if we're asking for the right thing. So just ask him to help you see what to ask for, basically. And of course, ask believing too.
Yeah.
The third step is discerning. So discerning is just basically reviewing your day and discerning where you were walking with God or maybe where you were, turning away from God's love. And again, it's just to become familiar with the movements of the Spirit, because we're not always aware of how the enemy might be working in our life. And so this just also allows us to stop and to become very sensitive to the interior movements of the soul. And so, this portion of the examine is really to be aware of God's presence in our life and how present we were with Him, right? And so, again, there's no judgment. It's just going through the day, maybe hour by hour, maybe minute by minute, maybe morning, afternoon, evening, right before bed, and just looking as to, were you doing your own will? Were you doing God's will? Where were you moving with Him, and where were you moving away from Him? And a lot of times I talk about, if things are coming easy, I feel like I have a tailwind, I know I'm walking with the Spirit, right? But if I'm frustrated, things aren't going my way, that usually means I'm doing my own will. And so those are just things that we like to be aware of day to day, minute to my minute sometimes. The fourth is forgive. So we just want to name our sins and claim them, right? The enemy wants to keep things hidden. And so we want to be very conscious of where our bends are. If we tend toward pride or gluttony or sloth, the seven deadly sins, we all have some bend, maybe a couple in there. And we just want to be aware of those, right? Again, not judging, knowing that we've already been saved, and really just asking God to be present in these really messy parts of our life, right? Because that's where we need Him most. And
Yeah.
sometimes that's what we want to keep hidden, and we don't want to invite Him in, and we want to handle it on our own. And so I would just really be open here, really be concrete here. Don't hide anything to yourself with, between the Lord. Confess, with a trusted spiritual director, if you need to, and just recognition of your bend. That's what we want to do, because the enemy will always use our weakest parts, right? Our weakest bends. And so if we're aware of those and we see where he's working those weakest parts, we can turn and go the opposite way. Okay. And then last is resolution. So the fifth step is just practical steps for that day or for the next day. And you really can ask God for insight here. Like, God, what do you want me to focus on? You don't have to do this on your own, and you shouldn't do it on your own. And they don't have to be huge conversions or huge changes. They can really just be small things where maybe you have a thought process, you get stuck on a thought, a negative thought, and you indulge in the negative thought, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So maybe, the next day you can catch that negative thought and just not go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Right? Or just doing small things, with great love. That one of the saints, Saint Therese, always said, she was she was a nun, very sickly, but her way of serving the Lord was doing small things, but with expansive love, which I love. So maybe there's some small things that you can do to serve, maybe your husband or your kids or a neighbor or something. So again, this doesn't have to be huge, and invite God in to really, see where you can resolute to do things differently in the next day. So we hope this examine was helpful. Again, you can go to theprodigalfather.org. He has some great resources on the examine, or if you'd like the journal. And if not, you can reach out to us. We'd love to help you find more resources too.
Thanks for joining us, guys.